March in Florida means warmer days and cooler nights, which is the perfect time to start some warm season crops before that summer heat kicks in. In today's video, I'm going to share 26 crops you can plant in the month of March in Florida, whether you're in North Florida, Central Florida, or South Florida. And by the end of it, you'll know exactly which ones are good for you and whether you should start from seed or start from transplants. Let's get into it. We're going to kick things off by talking about beans and peas. The thing you want to remember about beans and peas is that all of these should be started directly from seed. These plants do not transplant well, so don't even bother trying to start them in a seed starting cell or buying a start. Bush beans are nice because they grow shorter and wider, and they often don't even require any support at all. So it's a great option for beginner gardeners. A common type of bush bean grown in Florida is a Blue Lake 274 bush bean. This is a great green bean variety to grow. Bush beans can be grown throughout the entire state of Florida in the month of March. Now, when you're looking at bean varieties, you're also going to come across pole beans. Pole beans grow very tall, like 8 to 10 feet tall, and they're going to need some vertical support. So consider what trellis options you have available if you're going to choose some pole beans. Pole beans also can be grown throughout the entire state of Florida in the month of March. Lima beans are another great type of bean that you can grow in March in Florida. I opted for Nema green lima beans this year, and I just recently started them. You can see they're already growing really quickly. And the great thing about beans is that they require very little fertilizer compared to most other vegetables. When it comes to lima beans, all of Florida can plant these in March. Next, I want to talk about peas. We've got English peas, snow peas, and snap peas. Right here behind me, we have some sugar snap peas. These are the style where both the shell and the peas are actually edible. So whenever I come out to the garden and they're ready to harvest, you can bet I'm going to be eating them. Now, peas like the temperatures a little bit cooler than beans do, and so I really only recommend that North Florida plants peas in March. Now, we also have southern peas. All of Florida can plant southern peas right now, and some examples of those are black-eyed peas or Crowder peas. These are the type of peas that are shelling peas, so you're not going to eat the exterior shell. You can harvest them when they're green and tender, or you can wait until the beans dry on the vine. Now, southern peas are the heat-loving peas. These are the ones that we're still going to be able to plant well into the heat of summer. So for me, I'm going to hold off on planting southern peas and use my garden space for something else right now. Hey guys, my name's Jen. I'm here in Melbourne, Florida, which is Zone 10A for gardening. On this channel, I'm sharing my journey with learning how to grow vegetables in my suburban backyard, and I'm hoping I can inspire others to grow some vegetables as well. If you're interested in this type of content, hit that subscribe button and check out some of the videos on my channel. Next up, root veggies. There's 2 root vegetables that can be planted all the way through March in all of Florida, and those are carrots and radishes. Now, carrots and radishes need to be direct sowed. I actually came across this really cool product. It's a carrot tape. I know a couple places offer it, like Burpee and Haas.com. Carrot tape can make it much easier to direct sow carrot seeds in your garden. They're already appropriately spaced without you having to handle every tiny little carrot seed. Now, radishes are really quick to harvest. You can sow the seeds and expect to harvest them in about 30 days, whereas carrots are going to take more like 4 months to reach harvest. At this time of year, I would recommend choosing a heat-tolerant carrot like a Carota carrot, which I picked up from Jera's garden. The next crop is celery. Celery is considered a petiole crop. A petiole crop is one in which the stalk that connects the stem of the plant to the leaf of the plant is actually the edible part. Celery is part of the carrot family, so similar to carrot, it can be planted throughout the month of March in all of Florida. However, celery is very slow growing, so I highly recommend you buy starts for celery. I just harvested my celery the other day, and I had to buy 6 starts because that's the way they sold it at my local store. And I gotta say, I've got more celery than anyone can probably eat. The next 2 crops are considered cruciferous vegetables. And cruciferous veggies are more cool season crops, so these 2 crops are limited to only Central and North Florida. The first one I want to talk about is kohlrabi. I've got 2 more kohlrabi that are growing right here. It's such a cool crop. The edible part is actually the swollen stem, and I just harvested a big one yesterday using my Felco F14 shears, which are some of my favorite new shears for the garden. I'll drop a link in the description box below to these shears. You're gonna want to pick these up. These are shears that are gonna last a lifetime. time. Now kohlrabi doesn't mind roots being disturbed, so feel free to buy transplants for kohlrabi if you'd like. Our second cruciferous veggie that we can plant all throughout the state of Florida is going to be Chinese cabbage. Chinese cabbage refers to Napa cabbage or bok choy or joy choy. Now, because we're in the last month of the season where we can actually plant these, I would highly recommend buying transplants. And be aware that buying transplants sometimes means you don't get to choose specifically what type of variety you're picking. So normally for Chinese cabbage, I would recommend a heat-tolerant variety like joy choy, but you're probably not going to find joy choy as a start in a nursery or a big box store. So if you're gonna buy a start for Chinese cabbage this month, I'd recommend buying a start of Napa cabbage. I love growing Napa cabbage because it's the primary ingredient in a homemade kimchi, and I just made some with my last harvest of Napa cabbage, and wow, this stuff was so good. The next category we need to be thinking about is leafy greens. Spring and summer is salad season, so let's get those greens growing so we can have the freshest salads ever. Arugula. Arugula is my #1 choice. It's a great secondary green to add to salads because it gives a nice peppery flavor. Arugula is also very quick to harvest, so you can plant it from starts or from seeds, but I highly recommend just growing from seed because arugula is going to be ready somewhere between 30 and 45 days after you plant those seeds. Swiss chard is another green that all of Florida can grow in the month of March. You can direct sow Swiss chard seeds, or you can buy some starts at the store. Not everyone loves Swiss chard though, so I'd love to know in the comments if you're a Swiss chard lover or a Swiss chard hater. The next leafy green I want to talk about is spinach. Now spinach likes cooler weather, so it's really probably only a good choice for Central and North Floridians to plant in the month of March. Spinach can be started from seed, or you can buy starts for spinach. However, I want you to know that spinach is not very easy to grow in Florida. I've personally really never had success with spinach, but my starts right now are looking pretty good, so maybe this is the year where I'll have success with spinach. As a backup, if you're interested in spinach, but you want a better probability of success, try buying some tatsoi seeds and sowing those instead. Tatsoi is a heat-tolerant Asian green, which can be a spinach substitute. This is my first year growing tatsoi, so I'll let you know how it goes for me in future videos. Endive is another nice salad green that is usually a little bit more heat tolerant than some other leafy greens. So all of Florida can plant endive in the month of March, although I'd recommend starting from starter plants. If you have something like a green stalk or a garden tower for vertical gardening, something like endive is a great pocket filler. Now let's get into some cucurbits. To be honest, these are probably the hardest crops to grow in Florida. The first one I want to talk about is cucumbers. Cucumbers are so susceptible to powdery mildew, so a lot of Florida gardeners have major troubles with cucumber plants. Cucumbers like some cool nights, so it may be a little bit too hot in South Florida for cucumbers right now. I only recommend Central and North Florida planting cucumbers in the month of March. I planted a Boston Pickling heirloom variety, and I also planted a China Jade cucumber variety that should be really fast maturing and a seedless style. If you're planting cucumbers, make sure you have some trellis space available because these vines are going to get really long. Cantaloupes are another vining veggie that we should be planting in the month of March. All of Florida can be planting cantaloupes right now. I'm going to direct sow because these are not going to transplant well. I'm putting them on the back side of my raised beds so I can use this cattle panel trellis to help support the vine as it grows. So I just direct sowed it about a ½ inch deep, and now I'm watering it in. Summer squash is the next crop we should be growing in the month of March. All of Florida should be planting their zucchini right now. The difference between summer squash and winter squash is the thickness of the skin. Summer squash is something that's not going to last very long in storage, so if you want to store it for the long haul, you're going to have to do something like freezing or canning. Zucchini has a bush-like growing habit, so it doesn't need much support, although I may put something like a bamboo stake to help it sit upright instead of lean over. When it comes to winter squash, I'm talking about acorn squash, spaghetti squash, butternut squash. All of those are going to be your vining crops, and they're definitely going to need some trellis support. Both summer squash and winter squash will struggle to be transplanted, so you should direct sow the seeds this month. These crops are also heavy feeders, so you're going to have to be on top of it when it comes to watering and on top of it when it comes to fertilizing. And the reason I say that squashes are pretty hard to grow in Florida is because of the pest pressure. We're going to get lots of worm pressure, and we're also going to get lots of disease pressure. So I'm expecting my zucchini and my squashes to get lots of powdery mildew, and I'm hoping to keep it at bay this year. Now, if you're looking forward to eating a nice red juicy watermelon in early summer, now is the time to plant your watermelon. I went with a sugar baby watermelon, which is a pretty small variety, and I plan on supporting those vines with my cattle panel trellis back here. Now, similar to squashes, cucumbers, and cantaloupe, these are going to need to be direct sowed, and all of Florida can be planting these in the month of March. Now let's move on to the nightshade family. Nightshades include eggplants, tomatoes, and peppers, and I want to start with eggplant. Now, eggplant, I recommend only North Florida planting eggplant in the month of March because eggplant needs some time to mature before those temperatures get too hot. I'm in Central Florida and I'm going ahead and planting my transplant of eggplant because if you watched my video recently where I said I messed up and killed my eggplant and peppers, you know the whole story. I had nice eggplant starts and I planted them back out in February and then they died. So I went to the store and I bought some starts and here we are. I'm trying to get it in the ground and I'll just see what happens. Tomatoes are another crop that we can be planting in the month of March. However, I only recommend it for North Florida. Tomatoes come under some really heavy disease and pest pressure as the temperatures warm up, so it's important for us to get it in the ground before that crazy heat and pest pressure starts. I would definitely use some transplants for tomatoes to give them a nice head start. The heat is going to bring out the tomato hornworms, which will decimate your tomato crop. The next crop we should be planting in the month of March is peppers. Peppers are great for Central and North Florida to start by transplant right now. Now keep in mind that the spicier the pepper, the better it does in the hot weather. This year I have some cayenne, some jalapeno, and even some bell peppers growing. March is also the month where all of Florida should be looking to start or buy their sweet potato slips. The sweet potatoes are a little bit different. They're not going to start from a transplant and they're also not going to start from seed. They start from a slip which can be grown from an existing sweet potato. You can grow them yourself or you can even go to a big box store and buy some sweet potato slips if you'd like. Just remember, sweet loves heat when it comes to potatoes, and late spring and summer is our window for planting sweet potatoes. In South Florida and Central Florida, pretty much the entire year you can be growing sweet potatoes. In March, all of Florida can be planting the easiest crop ever, which is green onions. Green onions can be grown so easily just from grocery store cuttings. And if you accidentally pull it out or one of your kids pulls it out of the garden, you can just replant it and it's good to go. Corn is the next crop we can be planting in the month of March. Corn needs to be direct sowed, and you're really going to need a lot of space for corn. I've tried to grow corn before, but I ended up pulling all the plants because they just looked like they were way too big for my raised beds. So if you have an in-ground garden, I would certainly recommend trying to grow corn and put them close together in high quantities, and you should have no issues with pollination. Okra is the last crop I recommend planting in the month of March for all of Florida. Okra should be direct sowed. Last year I grew a Clemson spineless okra and wow, those plants got so huge. Okra is a heat-loving plant, so make sure you know what you're doing in the summertime because for me, my summertime plantings are going to be southern peas, sweet potatoes, and okra. So right now I'm going to save my garden space for something other than okra. That's it for today's video about what to plant in March, and I hope you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button and I'll see you guys next time.